Hey everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of the In the Paint podcast, episode 167, season 6, number 2 of the new school year 23-24. How you guys doing, Ronnie and Chelsea? Appreciate you guys being on with me as usual. We're gonna really get into it. We're gonna try to go a little hard today and see how everything's going.
Yeah, man, it's been good. I've been traveling a lot. Was just in LA. I was in your side of town, guys. Oh, y'all in Vegas, but still, like, I'm in the West Coast.
Sure,
I'm just glad to be back here in Central Time Zone. At least I know what time it is. I'm not confused. How about you, Chels?
I am doing amazing. I saw the Queen last night. If y'all don't know who the Queen is, that is the one and only Beyonce. So she was in Vegas. She did 2 shows, 2 nights in a row, Saturday and Sunday. And I had the opportunity to see her Sunday. I had floor seats. She was amazing. So I'm a little tired this morning from being out all night, but I made it and I'm ready to talk some hoops.
Yeah, before we talk some hoops, let's do a little hot take here. On these artists and just like greatness. Obviously, Beyonce is one of the best performing artists, and like sales wise and popularity, the whole 9 yards, stage presence. But like, is there any relation to that in sports? Like a person who can sing great but just doesn't have it, like doesn't have the stage presence. Is there? So who are your, like, Chelsea? Give me your top 2 performers and your top 2 favorite artists. And is it one and the same?
Well, Beyonce is absolutely at the top of the list for me. I give you 2 reasons, and if you want to make the sports comparison, it's longevity alone. Like, Beyonce's been in the game for 25 years. We've seen Beyonce go up against pretty much everybody, and for her to just remain this consistent, this dominant. And, you know, my mom went to the show last night. She's never been to a Beyonce concert, and I have been to every Beyonce concert since I've been a professional and made my own money.
Sure.
And it's the total production and show itself is, like, you know, above and beyond. Forget being a super Beyonce fan. If you go look at my story, if you go look on Twitter and just seeing the production of her show, it's a total, like, outfit change, dancers, you know, It's a total performance. And so I think anybody, even if you're not a crazy Beyonce fan, can just appreciate that. And like I said, just to be able to stay relevant for 25 years or relevant in anything for a long time is amazing. So she is at the top of the list for me. And I compare her to LeBron, who is my GOAT of longevity. And it just makes perfect sense. I've had the chance to see a lot of people perform live. You know, another person at the top of my list is Chris Brown. Another person at the top of my list would probably be Usher, who I also saw this summer. You can give him a longevity award as well, just being relevant for so long and just having the ability to sing and dance and stuff all night. Like, I think that's what people kind of not take for granted, but it's hard. Like, you know,
who dances better, Usher or Chris Brown?
I give Chris Brown the slight edge, but people, you know, talked about Usher and Chris Brown maybe doing a versus battle, and I think Chris Brown has way more songs, but I think Usher has more classic hits. Like,
Usher has more hits that are popular, I think. I don't know, Lonnie. You feel the same, Lonnie? Does Usher have more hits than Chris Brown? Is pretty
Yeah,
close.
I mean, he just been around longer, but yeah, like, I would say performance-wise, I've actually been to both. I would give, for me, Usher was a better performance for me. I would say one performance that was really high level was like Silk Sonic. I went to that one.
Really?
Like, that is kind of like, they're not the GOAT, right? But like, they're like Blake Griffin in his prime, right? Like, he's just one of those, like,
incredible.
You know, you just enjoy it while that time's going on. So I would say them for me. Like, I've gone to a couple concerts like J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. Like, those for me have been like with that Silk Sonic, been the best performances I've seen. And obviously, like, when it comes to hip hop, like, they're up there as well.
No doubt. Yeah, I just wanted to get you guys' take on that. I guess the only thing I thought about, because somebody was mentioning the bars recently to me, and obviously they're a little bit older than you guys listen to all the time, probably, but like, they're really good singers. I mean, there was 5 in the main group, and there was like 10 family members, and a lot of them can sing. Almost all of them can sing. But then when they get on stage, they're not they're not Beyonce, they're not Michael Jackson, they're just good singers. So it's going to me, it's like almost like Clyde Drexler, like he's really good. But then you get up against Michael Jordan, it's like, no, he's not Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
so that's why I kind of want to bring it up. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of artists. We don't want to spend much time. I just thought it'd be funny because you just recently went to the Beyonce concert. She'd obviously be at the top of a lot of people's list. They're being honest, right? So yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about today a little bit. Just I just bring up Clyde Drexler's. I'm bringing up how a player good, how players are good, meaning like how good they were. We look back, and obviously we're not going back to Clyde Drexler's class, but we're going to look back at some recent classes and talk about why players hit and miss. Mm-hmm. And I thought about Clyde Drexler because he wasn't McDonald's All-American, but Clyde was like really, really good, and he was a star at the University of Houston. But some people thought he was going to be really good, and then others were like, no, he just kind of not that highly recruited. Other schools didn't really get on him. He wasn't recruited by the blue bloods of the world at that time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, just why players miss, maybe because we're always talking about the positive attributes and great players, right, Ani, at an event or not. Chelsea, we're always talking about that, but we want to give maybe reasons why, and maybe some of the people who listen to the podcast each week can say, okay, I can get with that why a player misses. And there's obviously a bunch of reasons, but we'll get into that a little bit. But is there anything else out there you guys thought of, in the last week or so that's just crazy news, or it's just kind of an easy transition right now? It's a lot of baseball, and then we're going to get into, obviously training camps and the season.
Yeah. Well, I want to just continue to encourage our listeners to dive into the WNBA. Like, I know this is a, grassroots pod. We talk a lot about NBA a little bit. I touch on WNBA, but WNBA is in full swing. It's been one of the most competitive seasons they've had in a really long time from top to bottom. We're hitting the home stretch. Everybody has, 5-6 games left. And the playoff race is really tight, especially for the top 8 teams make the playoffs. There's 3 teams that are locked in already, but the playoff race is really tight. There's amazing games pretty much happening every day. Even today, the New York Liberty and the Aces will face off for the last regular season meetup against the 2. And this is the number 1 and the number 2 team in the league. So, if you're not a fan, or if you're on the fence fan, today would be a perfect opportunity to watch a great game with some of the, superstar players in our league. And, I'm just going to keep being an advocate because it's great hoops, and you guys should get into it.
For sure.
Right. No doubt, Chelsea. As we're shooting on Monday, August 28th, we appreciate everybody being with us. We'll get into it a little bit more, but maybe we'll do a short. So make sure you check out our In the Paint Overtime. We'll just, we have a little topics that maybe don't fit the show. We're speeding the show along, keeping it moving. We'll try to keep it under an hour or close to an hour. Instead of going on and on, me and Ani, we talked about Elite 24 rainouts that happened. 2 of them different happened. So make sure you go check out that on the Ballislife podcast network, In the Paint Overtime, where we just have a little bit more tidbits, notes, and maybe Chelsea will pick up a topic there. But we'll just jump into our main topic. Again, we wanted to talk about scouting, evaluation, why players make it, why players miss. Ani, I guess my first question would be just, is missing, like why a player missed, is that the same as why a player did a lot better than expected, or is that still considered a miss, or is that a completely different topic? Like, I guess the number 1 guy would be Steph Curry, right? I mean, right. Did we all miss on him, or is it nobody missed because nobody got it right?
Yeah, I think everyone missed on him. I mean, who would have thought he would be who he is and everything? I mean, everyone just missed. Like, there's no way other than his family, like his own blood, that would think that he'd be the all-time 3-point maker in NBA history. Like, he'd be the best shooter in the NBA. Like, no one seen him out of high school thinking that, right? Now, I watched high school stuff on him. Like, okay, yeah, he probably was a borderline. To me, I felt like he was a high major kid, but we didn't value shooting like that, like that. Now we do today. But I was like, yeah, he's a high major kid. Like, I think if he played now, like coming out of high school, he would have high major recruitment, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Just because of how well he shoots. We see guys like him in that pro, maybe not Steph, but like in that kind of play style that are going high major because of guys like Steph Curry. You see what I'm saying? Like, I definitely think he would got high major recruitment in today's age where we really value shooting.
So I want to ask you guys, when you talk about missing, break down for, you know, our viewers, like some of the guys that we're going to talk about today still are, you know, they were top draft picks. They made it in the WNBA. So when you talk about missing, are you really just talking about what they were basically able to accomplish and how good they became? Because I feel like if you make it to the NBA, you didn't miss, because it's a, you know, it's hard to get there. So
I think when you look at from a national scope, when you look at guys that are top 5 in the country, yes, they're NBA guys, but you're also looking at them as guys that are contributors in the NBA team or borderline all-star, starter level guys. I don't think you would list someone that was top 5 in a national level. And Ronnie, you can chime in on that. Like, that is like a Marcus Smart, right? That contributing for a championship level team that's a double-digit per game score. That's someone that, you know, maybe he will never make an all-star team, but he's someone that is going to be a starter for any NBA team. You know, that to me is where you look at, it's like tiers of where they're ranked at.
Sure.
If someone's a top 60 kid and make it to the NBA, you don't say, oh, like, you know, like you may miss the other way around. Maybe you didn't think he'd be a one and done, right? Or something like that. It just depends on where the ranking is and just how it all ends up. I think if someone's like, if you're top 5, honestly, top 5 to 10, and you make it to the NBA and you flame out, like, that's not why you were ranked top 10.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, there was a higher, you were projected higher than that. So that there's tiers to it depending on where you're ranked. So Ronnie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you there. If you're a top 5 guy, most people think you're going to stick in the NBA and be a starter.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So maybe it's the expectation level. Maybe some of it's unfair, Chelsea, to your point as an athlete, coming in from an athlete's perspective. You know, again, the girls are not talked about as much in terms of their ranking. Maybe because there's way less spots and it's much more difficult, you know, to stick and make it. Obviously, we talk about first round picks getting cut, which is pretty insane. Yeah. But, you know, I've seen some girls and it's like, seems like the greatest girls are really good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what the names that come to mind are obviously 3 names that come to mind are Cheryl Miller, Diana Taurasi, and Maya Moore. Like, people expected them to be number 1 type players and great players, and they were. So Chelsea, if like Maya Moore was just a fringe WNBA player, would she be a bust? I would, compare to how good we saw her in her like Nike National stuff, I would think most people would be like, wow, like she didn't, you know, make it great. Or are you like, no, she's making a pro, she's making money, guys, she's still very good. You know,
no, I get that. And I agree. The expectations for certain players going in are really high. But I just think when you get down, I don't really, when I'm having this conversation, I'm not thinking about the players with the expectations that we know are supposed to be there. You know what I mean? But I'm talking about, you know, just there's a lot more role players in the WNBA or NBA than there is star players. So when you get down to some of these role players, if they're able to have a long NBA career, somebody like a Marcus Smart, who's never going to be an all-star or, you know, but still, like you said, has value in the league, is going to play, you know, a decade plus in the WNBA, I just can't consider that a miss. But like you said, I think that there's definitely tiers to it. So LeBron, Maya, Diana, those type of people, like that's a level of its own.
Yeah,
but for most people making the league and sticking and playing more than 1, 2, or 3 in the WNBA, playing a year is, you know, incredible in itself. So I look at it that way.
I think when it comes to it, like, it's also like college, how successful they were in college as well. And like, we'll touch on this. There's some guys that I feel like I missed on that I thought were going to have better college careers, you know, than they did, right? Or they were going to have a more successful college career right off the bat, more so than what they did. So it's like, I think once you get past a certain number in the rankings, if they become a pro, regardless if it's 2 or 3 years, it doesn't matter, right? But that's kind of what I mean by tiers. Like some guys I missed on because they had really successful college careers that I missed on. Like I didn't think that would happen. Some guys I felt that were ranked high that I thought could potentially be pros, maybe a couple multi-year college guy, but they're still in college and they're maybe just now figuring it out or they're not figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like I think misses are like it's fluid. Like it's multiple layers to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you guys, let's just get into it, some of the reasons why. Ronnie, give me, your top 3 reasons why a prospect may be a miss.
Okay. Yeah. Just getting into it. Again, like we said, there's a lot of layers, a lot of things we can talk all day about it, but just getting straight to the nitty gritty. Doing scouting reports, following this. Number one, I think is, and again, you guys can help me here, maybe. I just call it entitlement, but some may call it lack of self-awareness. Maybe there's a better term. So some kids have this very young and are focused and driven. But I don't think we can expect every kid to be really, if a kid wants to be good at basketball, but he's not focused and driven, that it's okay. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think with just the pressures and expectation, it becomes, because sometimes people want it, more than the kid does. So basically, and I don't know how this is true in other sports. Maybe it's true a little bit in Pop Warner football. I don't see it as much in Pop Warner football. Definitely don't see it in baseball because I love baseball. I just don't go to baseball games as I'd like, or baseball events. But like, basically, you can't tell who's going to be the greats in football, in baseball, and other sports right away. You team sports, you can in basketball. So what does that create? It creates people treating those kids differently. And we can say it doesn't, but they do. You know what I mean? At all the events. And I think kids are smart enough to see that. So when that happens, I think some kids can start cutting corners. They get away with things. It becomes easy to be a bit complacent compared to the player who's not as highly ranked and maybe a little bit more hungry. And I know we've talked about those type of players many, many, many times. So that would be my number one thing. Do you guys think there's a better term for it? I could just call it entitlement. Maybe that's not a great term. Is there something that's better for that, what I just explained? Is there a better term?
I think you made the mention of like self-awareness. And I think when you're dealing with kids, it's the people that are surrounding these kids that give these kids, this sense of entitlement. I don't think it's so much sometimes it's the kid. It's the people around them saying, you're so great, you're so great, you're so great. Yeah. Instead of saying, yo, you got to keep working hard, you got to do this, you got to do that. So I think it really develops, from your circle. Like when you just have a lot of people, like you said, kids that are really talented get treated differently. Yeah. So when you're constantly treating these kids like they are LeBron and telling them they're the next best thing to LeBron, you know how we love to say, oh, he's the next KD, he's the next LeBron. Like, so if I'm a kid and somebody's telling me that, well, how do you expect me to react?
Right. Yeah. Right. It becomes nauseating. It becomes a euphoria. It's like a high constantly. So yeah, I think maybe there's not a specific term, but you're right. It's more the other people, which leads to my second point. My second point is they don't fix their weaknesses. So back to your point, Chelsea, it's you're surrounded by people that know you're a good player, are good for your age, whether it's 15, 13, 17, and they will benefit if you make it. And when we say benefit, we're meaning make it to the NBA. And we know nowadays in the last 20 years, that's an insane amount of money.
Right. Right.
Yeah, especially in the last 20 years, I would say, 25 years. That's a lot of money. It ain't just like, oh, Dr. J's making 150,000 this year, or Phil Ford is making 400,000. No, it's like ridiculous amount of money. So yeah, people know that they can benefit from it. So they're either scared, in my opinion, to critique, or they become blinded. They become part of that. What you're saying, Chelsea, they become part of that. They can't tell what anymore, like you said, with the constant praise, what needs to be done or what needs to be worked on. So my second point is they don't fix the weaknesses. I see players in the NBA and they do the same shit that they did when they were 15, but they're good enough to make it. They either have the size, they have the shooting, the athleticism, but they're still that. And sometimes it does frustrate me. I'm like, dude is still lacking a mid-range game. Our dude's still lacking a left hand. I mean, I don't mean to pick on him, but I just thought about this right now because I'm not picking on Jaylen Brown. Everybody's talking about Jaylen Brown all day on Twitter. He's making all that money. You're like, he still can't go left. He still can't dribble left. People are talking about it. So, but again, Jaylen Brown is 6'8". He covers ground. He's athletic. So not everybody's 6'8". So when you have weaknesses that we're talking about and you're 6'1" or 6'2", it's gonna catch up to you. So they don't fix their weaknesses. I can give some examples, but instead of doing that, I can take that back. Let's go to point 3 just to keep it moving. The Little League parents and money. We kind of touched on that a little bit with the insane amount of money, the handlers on, the entitlement. Recently a political talk show host talked about there's more kids playing Little League and AEU than there are that have summer jobs. So I would say even before me, 70s, 60s, like summer jobs were kind of a part of a kid's staple, whether it was a paper route or, hey, you get up, you go to a summer job. Like kids don't have summer jobs no more. Even if their parents don't have a lot of money, they don't have summer jobs. Like back then, parents had money and they still had summer jobs. So it taught them maybe a little bit of punctuality, routine. So now it's like, it's the other way. The parents are spending quite a bit of money for kids to play basketball and do other sports. Basketball is becoming expensive really quick in the last like 10 or 15 years, in my opinion. It's like really expensive, whether it's the parking fees we talk about, parking, entry fee at the door, the team entry fees are high. Kids basically pay to play. They're not playing for free. Right. So I will say myself, again, Ani, you can use your own testimony, and Chelsea, you can too. Is my parents didn't really spend shit for me to play sports. They bought me a glove. They might have bought me a basketball. They're like, all right, dude, you're going to go to the park. You're going to go to the school. Like, it cost my parents nothing for me to play sports, really. Not too much. So what did that do? It probably brought their stress level down. We talk about fights in the gym. We talk about hitting referees. To me, all that is based on the stress level of everybody involved. Right. The refs don't feel they're getting paid enough. The tournament director has to pay the ref. The parents are pissed because they're paying yin-yang out of the money. And then they have to pay the parking fee. They're already pissed because they got to pay the coach the entry, for the kid to play. So I just think when that happens, that leads to even more burnout and unhappy young people playing. You're supposed to be happy when you're playing sports. I see a lot of kids that are not happy. Just in the gym, I noticed in the last 10 years, I see people that their stress levels are very high. We haven't really had an episode about that, but that we've talked about it on many episodes and little tidbits, and I think that's the reason why. So I think it's the parents who have unrealistic views because it becomes justified. They're saying, Chelsea, I'm spending thousands of dollars on you playing basketball. You better get in that gym. You better keep practicing. And you're like, Dad or Mom, I'm not feeling good today. I don't care. We spent $3,000. Or maybe they don't have to say that. It's just implied. Like, my parents are really supporting me. They're pushing me. I need to do this. And then it leads to burnout, leads to injuries, other quick things. So those are the three main things I would say to wrap it up is the lack of self-awareness or entitlement, not working on your weaknesses, and then just the overall stress of the money and the parents.
Well, I agree with all of your points, Ronnie, but specifically the last one about the parents. Yeah. I think I agree with a lot of the points that you made. Me coaching AAU these last couple of summers has totally opened my eyes to how these parents are. And when you talk about this lack of self-awareness of the kids, the parents are the most delusional people around. Right. And I can tell you that firsthand. Paying money does not mean that your kid has to play. Yeah. Like I understand, but when you get to a certain point, like, I coach on a competitive travel ball team. Yeah. We tell the parents all the time, basketball is not equal opportunity. Sure. Your kid is going to get a chance. But as we're preparing your kid for the next level, when they go to college or whatever, everybody doesn't get to play just because they have a scholarship. Sure. It doesn't work like that. So I think you made an excellent point about the parents. I think that would probably be at the top of my list because it leads to so many other things. You just talk about burnout and kids that don't really want to play, and that's why these kids have the mentality that they do because. Like you said, when we were kids, my parents aren't paying a whole bunch of money. Get out there, go work on your game. And it wasn't even a forced thing. We were out there because we wanted to be,
Sure.
So that's just the huge difference. So I think you made some excellent points. Ani, I'm curious to know, do you have anything to add? I mean, I'm sure you agree with most of the stuff that's been saying, but what do you feel you can add and why prospects miss?
Yeah, no, Ronnie had really good 3 points. For me, it's really that mental makeup. I think like I do a lot of interviews, right? I talk to a lot of kids, and then really it's for me to get to know them, right? But like a lot of them, I ask questions like, "Hey, what's your, how many times a day do you work out?" Right? Or I'll ask around, kind of figure it out. Some of these guys that are really good right now, maybe they're rising seniors or they're rising juniors, whatever. Every time you see them kind of pan out, it's usually because of like if they max out early or they just don't really progress. It's usually like maybe physically they were so much farther advanced than their peers, right?
Okay.
Like
Body
sophomores, right?
Yeah.
Body wise, athletically, whatever.
Yeah.
And they just really developed the skill set. Why is that, right? Like how much work do they put into the skill? Along the lines of that, like are they working out in the right things? Doing the right things. Like people can go a long ways, but they can go the wrong way, right? So a lot of those things occur. Like how much are they working out? Are they willing to work out? And then it kind of goes to Ronnie's point about who's in their circle. I think it's very important to have a tight circle. People that don't have tight circles, that have a lot of people around, what's going to happen is that you're going to have like advice, like one person says this, the other person is contradicting the other person, right?
Yeah.
And then also what happens when you don't have a small circle, not everyone agrees because someone's trying to get into that kid's ear in regards to, hey, listen to me, don't listen to them. Then it kind of gets into this war within kids, right? Like, okay, do I listen to him? Do I listen to him? And they're all in that circle. So that's why it's good to have a tight circle because everyone can at least agree on. And then if someone's trying to go outside of what everyone else is in, then you kick them out. So I think a lot of the misses that you see is because guys don't have tight circles or they keep people in that for too long, right? And that kid is getting contradicting advice and it hurts. For me, I would say a third one is like too many trainers.
Oh my God.
Like I would say that, like kids have there's some players that have 4 or 5 trainers or going to so many dudes. And it's like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like that dude, like go one to me, the most two. I think have a skills trainer, have a strength and conditioning trainer, and have your circle of guys that you listen to, your people you listen to, with your parents or whatever, like whatever it is, right? I think that's just the easiest thing to do. But guys go to I go to here on Monday and Wednesdays. I go to here on Tuesday and Thursdays. On Fridays, I go to Tyler Ruff. And I'm not even trying to go at Tyler Ruff. It's just like, okay, like going to Tyler Ruff once a week, like, isn't enough. Like, if you're going to just rock with Ralph, rock with him. You're going to, you know what I mean? Like, guys go to so many trainers and they're working on different things. And it's like, go to someone you rely on. Go to someone that can work on these things. Go to a strength and conditioning trainer that can help you get stronger and build and help you play 25 plus minutes a night, right? But guys go to so many trainers. I mean, I've seen big men go to guard trainers. You know what I'm saying? Like what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean?
Let me ask you, Ani, real quick, because I'm not. We should probably do an episode on trainers. I know some trainers have asked me to come on the show, which would be good. There's some positives and some things we can critique. But what is it socially about them? I'm missing the boat here. Like, I get putting some social media stuff on out there on your workout, but why is it that people go to so many trainers? Is it the socialization? Like it reinforces what you got going on, or is it just another way to there's a status involved in that, or is do they really feel they're just getting better because they're obviously playing To me, it's just like you're just paying another dude. It's just another bill.
It's a lot of things, right? Like, some people go to trainers because it's free.
Okay.
Some people go to training because they got film guys there. Some people go to training because they feel like they're getting better. Okay. Right? Like it's all those things. And I think the biggest thing is some people go to multiple trainers because they don't want to work out on their own.
Oh, it's like a motivational thing.
It's not like even I know I'm only 30, but like when I was growing up, like when I was playing, like I worked on things like on my own. Like we went out and worked on our day. Like all of us here, we will work on things on our own. You see what I'm saying? Like these kids don't want to rebound their own shots. And I'm not saying all of them, but like there's more compared to what you say 12, 13 years ago. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So what's easier? I go to a trainer that I can put up shots, get filmed on, and he's gonna rebound when I miss. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of like want to be seen, video, a little bit of laziness, to be honest with you. Yeah. And just not really just having that desire. Like there's not a lot of guys that will get up in the morning and work out on their own.
So that comes the driven part, right? That we talked about earlier, like the self-motivation. You got to want, that could separate a player who makes it who doesn't. Because he could have similar accolades. They could be length, good shooting, but the guy doesn't put it together. Yeah, because sometimes you wonder why a guy misses. What God, like you're like, that guy was good. What happens? It could just be that. I think one thing we didn't mention is that, again, maybe it's not one of our true factors. I know, Chelsea, you're like the parents and the money and the pressure is a huge one. Like maybe we don't know their makeup, like what really drives them money. That's sometimes guys miss. They just don't know inside, like you don't know. Some kids really want it. Others are like, they want it a little bit. They like it. Maybe they, like you said, they like the social aspect, the accolades. They like the people patting them on the back type of thing. So, I think those are all good points. I think those are all points people can take something from. Now, Chelsea, to put you on the spot a little bit, let's talk about on the other side. Has that already infiltrated the girls' game? The multiple trainers, overtraining, are we seeing that on the girls? I don't see this much online. Maybe I don't follow the right accounts, but is that already infiltrating the girls' game? Is it going to be a problem?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's right on brand with the men. Okay. And, to some of the points that Ani made, I don't even know if this is a thing, but I'm going to say it is. Like, there is these kids have too many resources. Like, too many. Yeah. Like, there's too many trainers. There's too much film, too many highlight tapes, too many camps, too many, like, just everything. Okay. And, you guys talked a lot about the mental makeup. I want to talk about the physical makeup as well. And when I say physical makeup, these kids there's more injuries amongst kids. Yeah. Like tearing an ACL, Ani, when I played in high school was unheard of.
Right.
It would be one kid in 20 high schools that had that injury. Yeah. These kids, ACL tears at 12 years old, 14, that kind of stuff was totally unheard of. But I think it just goes into just everything that we talked about. These kids don't play outside. Yeah. They don't ride bikes. They're not drinking out the water hose. This is stuff that we all came up on, and it plays into the mental makeup, but just the physical makeup as well. Like I started tearing my knees when I got to college. When I started gaining weight, they're putting me on weight gain or whatever. But just I've seen so many kids, and even kids in my program, with just ACL tears that are 13.
Right.
So I just think these kids, just from top to bottom, have way too many resources, just down the line, from trainers to everything. And to another point that Ani made, just about these kids not wanting to work on their own, that's an issue in itself, because we did have to get up and, decide that we want to play basketball, and it wasn't a forced thing. It wasn't a pressure thing. And that's why, our generation is just a little bit different. Yeah. Like nobody had to make me want to be a good basketball player. And I didn't have any of these resources. And I had a very long career because I just wanted it,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll touch on this till we get to our, our misses. But I do feel that players, you're right on like having too many resources and playing too many games,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I run my little homeschool deal, but it's like when the guys get done in the summer, they're like, hey, coach, when we practicing again? I'm like, oh, we'll take about a month off.
Yeah.
Like, you don't play like 60, 70 games, right? In between March and July. So it's like, okay, we're going to wait, practice a little bit here, practice a little bit there. We'll start playing a little bit in September and stuff. But like these kids play so many games. Like in a year, they'll play over 100+ games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and that's not even including all the pressure that they get with all these things. So it's like these kids are tearing the ACL, like you said, Chelsea, because like they're playing so many games. Like they'll play 7 games in a weekend. The next week, then I'll have 3 practices in AAU, then play another 6, 7 games. Like there's a lot of games being played, and there's not a lot of rest time for them. It's not the adequate amount of rest for them.
Yeah, just to touch up on that, then we'll switch gears and we'll talk about some of the applications of that, meaning the misses and re-ranking classes, that kind of thing. But real quick, Chelsea and Ani, and see, we get your take on this. Like when we talk about athletes, and we were joking, Chelsea, a few days ago about girls dunking. I'm like, Chelsea, you see this girl in 10th grade? She's just dunking like nothing, And it's like when I see players, again, I'm not speaking of the girls, I'm more speaking on the boys' side, is they're athletic as ever as before, meaning jumping. I see a little bit of robotic thing, maybe mimicking. Like, once a player can dunk between the legs like J.R. Ryder, now everybody feels they can do it. Now all the boys can dunk between the legs. Like what J.R. Ryder did is nothing now. Nothing. Right? But it was a bad moment there. Like, dang, look at that East Bay dunk he just did, But that doesn't mean they're good athletes. Again, we can have a whole discussion, a whole topic on this. To me, I see kids that are awkward, like you said, because they're focused on one sport. They don't take break. They don't go ride their bike. They don't skateboard. They don't play baseball. They definitely don't play baseball. The kids don't have no clue how to play baseball. Like, it's just, they don't even know how to hold a baseball and throw it. So it's like, sometimes I think we're getting away from what like truly is a great athlete. Like he can play football, he can pick up and play a little bit of that, even a little bit of volleyball. Like, so we see kids that are, man, they're jumping, they're athletic in that terms, but I don't think they're great athletes. Maybe you guys have a different opinion. And then another thing is that I'll just say this: a kid in the NBA. There's a kid in the NBA right now. I played with him outdoors about 8 years ago.
Yeah,
we played outdoors. He was exhausted after like 45 minutes. Like, dude, you're out of shape. It's hot. It was hot. We're like, no, I'm like, come on. Like, I'm a 40-year-old dude. He's like, bro, I need some water. He's like you said, he's just not used to it. Like, he's in the NBA now, so there's no problem. He's in the NBA, but like we were playing a little bit, and he's just like, they were tired. I was like, hey, we really stopped. I'm looking around like, wait, it's only like 95 degrees. What's the big deal? So I don't know. Like, it goes to your guys' point, but do you think the notion of athlete is like not correct, or do you think no, they're just getting better and better at what they do?
I think the evolution of just genetics have these kids like running and jumping faster than we could have ever thought of. So I don't want to say that they're not good athletes. I, on the other hand, think these kids are excellent athletes and not really great players.
Right.
And I think that's really the difference. Like these kids can run and jump like crazy, but the skill sets, we had to rely more on skill because genetically we just weren't as gifted as some of these kids. And I think that besides that, I think a lot of these kids have the athleticism or the speed and the jumping, but they don't have the coordination. Right. I was teasing, one of my players about this the other day. I say, yeah, you're so goofy because you didn't play soccer. All kids need to play soccer when they're young. It is hand-eye foot coordination, and even if you don't want to become a soccer player, it's a life skill that kids develop early on just from running around and kicking a ball. Yeah. So I always tease some of my players all the time. Yeah, you can't walk and chew gum, but if I ask you to jump up there and slap the backboard, then you can do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I do think that these kids are great athletes, but I think that's more genetics and evolution and things just kind of over time. Just get better. But I don't think that this generation at all is better skill set wise and just, hand-eye coordination and the ability to, just do all things. And I think that speaks to what you were saying, like Ronnie, when we were kids, we played soccer, baseball, football. Everybody played everything. And yeah, you locked in on the sport that you were good at. I used to skateboard. I used to pogo stick. Whatever we were playing, I'm playing it. Even though I ended up being a basketball player, and these kids just don't do that anymore. So that's what I think the biggest difference is. I don't know. What do you think, Ani?
Same thing. I mean, I was a soccer player till I was 14 years old. That really was like my first love. I mean, obviously, I come from a Nigerian family, so you playing soccer. So yeah, I think not really playing in other sports, trying other things that develop hand-eye coordination is an issue. There's a lot of times, like in my articles on ballislife.com, it's like I talk about like this player, like how he's trying to like grow into his skill set, right? Like really good athlete, can do a lot of things. I think he's versatile as a defender, has some capabilities of being a switchable defender, but maybe his motor and his instincts aren't there yet. Yeah. And offensively, I'm kind of like, I like how he's, developing a jumper or whatever. Or just, his coordination. I agree with you. It does start off from the youth. A lot of these guys don't play other sports that really help with those things, or it's really develop the athlete. Then we'll get the basketball part later. We'll get the feel and stuff later. So it's those things. There's guys that do some things athletically. I'm like you said, like, I'm like holy shit. But like, from a feel and skill standpoint, where it's like, okay. You can't make that read because you don't see it, because you've always played off your athleticism. You can't play off 2 feet because you're not coordinated, so you can only play off 1. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of which then goes to the injuries and stuff like that. So I agree with you there. Like I played soccer till I was 14, so making basketball full time was nothing.
Yeah. I wish I played a little bit more soccer. I liked it, but I didn't. I just wanted to play more basketball, and I was like, man, let me play basketball. It just seemed funner. I wish I played a little more soccer, like realistically, because there's a lot of good soccer. Man, soccer's like taking over the parks where I grew up at. There's hardly nobody playing baseball that much. It's just soccer,
right.
Soccer. So that's awesome to see. But we'll switch gears here as we talked about. The factors into players missing. We'll actually talk about some of these players now, and we'll kind of give like ourselves a final exam on some of this stuff. And it's a very interesting to apply it now to the actual players. So with that being said, Chelsea, what is it out there that you kind of want to get from me and Ani in terms of like, okay, we talked about the reasons. Now what do we want to talk about, like applying it to players and applying it to like real life people?
Yeah, I think you guys gave an excellent breakdown of just, what goes into why a prospect, turns out to be great or not great, you guys really just gave the top factors that kick in, but I'm just curious to know who you felt like was a miss. Like, I want to hear from both of you guys, your top 3 biggest misses based on, the properties that we talked about, the things that we talked about. I want to hear your guys' top 3. And I'll start with you, Ronnie. Just, give me your first guy that you think of that was a miss, somebody that you thought probably should have been better, or, whatever.
No doubt. I'll go from reverse order to the top guy.
Okay.
So 3-1. So Josh McRoberts, 2005 class out of Indiana. He was ranked 4th by Gibbons, number 2 by my buddy Clark in the Hoop Scoop. Again, this is a little bit before Rivals and 247 and all those were really big. God, I just thought he was really skilled and smooth. But things just kind of got worse for him. I thought even if he wasn't the greatest athlete, I was like, man, he could put the ball in the hole. He plays on a great travel team. He's smart. Which I didn't really know is that he was in the last class that you can go straight from high school to the pro. So it's 2005.
Okay.
So it was like Mana Alice, Amir Johnson, that group, and he decided to go to Duke. And he probably would have got drafted. Then he probably would have got drafted the next year in 2006. I just thought he'd be more of a contributor, but he didn't improve that much. And then I found out later, and even recently, I didn't really know, but he had back surgery after his freshman year at Duke. So I'm like, well, why didn't he go pro then if
Yeah.
he had a bad back? Because I'm thinking again, Chelsea, if you say I have a hurt knee or like, I think it could recover. Like you use Terry Ace, I think it could recover. When you say you have a bad back, that just seems to me like one of those things where nobody can predict it. It's just like
Right.
it could be degenerate bad, you never recover. So I'm just when he had a
Mhm.
bad back, I'm like, wow. So I just thought he'd be better. I guess the moral of the story there is that health matters and keeping in tip
Absolutely.
top shape. And then go when you're hot. Like if people think you're top 2, 3 prospect, go. You know, go to like you know you didn't finish your career at Duke anyway. It's not like you got your degree in 2 years, so I go. So then that would be my thing there. My number 2 guy, again, Chelsea, you might have a different view on this. Again, it's all perspective. Is
Yeah.
2010 Pinecrest High, Brandon Knight. Number 3 by Hoop Scoop, 5 by Gibbons. He was behind universally Jared, Jared Sullinger and Harrison Barnes. Regardless of whether you like Harrison or Jared or Harrison,
Who's
he was
behind it?
behind those guys,
Yeah.
right? So he could be 3. I would have him 3. Brandon, uh, he was a Gatorade National Player of the Year twice. Great student, great player. I just thought he was so polished, especially young. Maybe I overlooked the fact that he wasn't very big and physical.
Yeah.
And he's not a true point guard. Um, again, when you're 6'3", are you big enough? Do you defend good enough? So when I saw him in the pros, whether it's the Pistons, and he had a good rookie year. I mean, he was good. I looked up his statistics before we got on. He was good at Kentucky, pretty good.
Yeah.
But maybe it's the expectation, when you get he was so good in 9th grade. I mean, smooth pocket. I was like, this guy's an NBA player. I'm like, wow, he's really good. But that's 9th grade. And I guess the
Mhm.
moral there is you got to continue to get better at each stage. So again, when you're 12th grade, you get viewed differently. When you're a college player, you get viewed differently. And in the pros, everybody's good at 6'3". So um, he was great. Was he as great for a 12th grader as I thought maybe a 9th and 10th grader? Maybe I didn't take that into consideration. Like you said, Ani, when you look good young, it's like you got to keep progressing. And he
Yeah.
was pretty good. Maybe I think Chelsea, I would say that you would think he's pretty good, but at 6'3", there's a lot of good guys. And when I saw him in NBA games, he just looked like another guy. I didn't think he was just going to be another guy. I thought he was going to be really good. So
Yeah.
that's my number 2 guy. Go and jump in there, Chelsea. Okay.
I just think sometimes just you guys as evaluators maybe can speak to this because I'm just going to speak to it as a casual fan. Sometimes we're just a prisoner of the moment.
Okay.
And sometimes what we enjoy in that moment does not translate to the next level. And I see that all the time. Great high school player,
Yeah.
not good college player. Great college player, not good NBA player.
Right.
So I think Brandon Knight, making it to the NBA, playing some very solid years,
That's some good years, yeah.
is good enough, especially being 6'3", because when you're small, you have to be spectacular.
Yeah.
And, maybe he was spectacular as a 9th grader, but sometimes, you peak or sometimes people just catch up to you. That's why I am not a fan of ranking kids when they're really young.
Sure.
I'm not a fan of, of any of that. There's some rankings right now, the top 5th grader. Like what? What?
Yeah.
5th grade.
Yeah.
So
Brandon was that's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brandon was like our 9th grade national player of the year, all that.
Yeah.
Great student, 2-time Gatorade player of the year. It's like, wow, I'm like Brandon. And so, he had a pretty good career. I mean, no doubt about it. Maybe he wasn't a wow all-star, but he's pretty good. So that's just like you said, perspective, and you got to give it some perspective. But I thought he'd be a little better. So now my number 1 guy, more recent, again, ranked number 1 by Rivals and Scout, number 2 by ESPN behind Harry Giles, 216 Josh Jackson.
Yeah.
He looked like an alpha player to me. He moved like one, acted like one. He was super explosive. He looked like an NBA player at various events I went to in high school. Again, he went from 2nd team all rookie, which is maybe is this little disappointing on where he got drafted. I don't know. Still 2nd team all rookie's not bad. That was what 217, 218. So now in 223, he's getting weighed by a G League team. So I'm like, oh boy, where's the decline there? What happened? So I would say one thing, and I think Chelsea, you've mentioned this on various various topics is the league is really hard to stick. Really, you have to be really that good. You have to be a professional. If you don't get better, you don't work. There's only so many gifted. So if you start messing up, and again we hear things about Josh, he got arrested.
Yeah.
He got cut. Maybe his attitude. He has other things going on. Unless you're Allen Iverson or Shaq or Wilt, like you can't afford that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No, absolutely.
you know, you just can't afford that. If the coach don't like you or you have an incident off the court, it's going to affect you. So, you know, another moral there is maybe again he kind of carried himself like a number one type of guy when he was young. He walked into a gym, people knew who he is, and in the NBA he doesn't have that mojo, and I don't think Brandon Knight did either. He's just another guy. So maybe Chelsea, you can talk to this, and maybe we should do a shorts on about this, about like losing your confidence. If maybe there's a girl player, you're like, man, Ronnie, when she was in the 10th, 11th grade, she could do no wrong, but when college and in the WNBA, she's just another girl. So he just, you know, sometimes when you lose your confidence or that swagger, you just don't get it back. And I don't see Brandon. I'm sorry, I don't see Josh getting it back. So those are my opinions.
I agree with just the point about losing confidence, and also too, like some of these kids, like they're just being set up. Yeah. Like, you know, I think of like Anthony Bennett, for example, and I'm going to use him because he's fresh in my mind. Anthony Bennett had no business being a number one pick, but he was a number one pick, which means the expectations, the pressure, you know, is tremendous. And I truly believe this, and, you know, maybe I'm not right. If Anthony Bennett would have been a late first round pick, he would have stuck in the NBA. Yeah. I think he would have been a very formidable, solid role player. You know, like I believe that. But because he went number one, you know, there's so many things that go into just being a player and being successful. And I think that maybe Josh Jackson was you know, he was a similar case. Like you can very much be an alpha in college and it not translate to the NBA. The NBA is very much about getting in where you fit in, unless you're a guy, unless you're Shaq or Will or Iverson or all these people that you name. But like you know, we talked about earlier on the show, there's going to be way more role players than there's going to be superstars. Yeah. So if you can't find a role, no matter what you did in high school or college, you're not going to have a long lasting career as a pro. And I know that, and I just believe that. So that's it. But Ani, let's get to your three biggest misses. Who would you put on your list? You could start from 3 or 1, whatever.
So for me, like Zaire Smith, probably like from Garland Lakeview Centennial, really blew up going to his senior year. Yeah. You know, I couldn't tell you that he was going to be a one and done, right? Yeah, did his NBA career go as planned? No, but I would not have told you he's an NBA player, right? You know what I mean? So like Zaire being a one and done at Texas Tech, he went to the right school. I think that's also part of the where you miss is the kids going to the wrong school or going to the wrong coach in the system. We didn't really touch on that, but you know, I think that's also a big part of it as well. But Zaire, you know, really athletic, fantastic human being and kid, really good work ethic, just developed later. Him going to Texas Tech, being a one and done and being drafted, I think he was 16th overall. That was something. Yeah. I missed on that. Like I thought really like mid plus level player has a high major chance. Obviously high major athlete, probably better off going to a mid major and hooping. Yeah. Did you think that he was going to be high major, play right away and contribute the way he did? No, I missed on that. And I missed on just knowing the kid more in his work ethic and seeing that he figured it out later. That I may not have missed on as bad. Now, I don't think I would ever have said he's a one and done NBA player, but I would have probably now me, like this was me 25 years old compared to, you know, like 30, 31, like probably could have seen that maybe he makes it to the NBA at some point, or he's a really good college player. Second for me is Will Baker. He's at LSU, I think, right now. 7 foot lefty, really skilled. I remember at one point I had him higher than than Drew Timme. I think in the national rankings, he was ranked 35th by 24/7. Drew Timme was ranked 43rd. Obviously, Drew Timme's had a way better career than he has. Yeah. Skilled lefty, could shoot it, had a lot of physical tools and skill tools. I knew Drew was better than him junior year summer, where he got like 30 and 15 on him and Will had like 12. I knew Drew was better than him then, right?
Sure.
Still thought Will, from a long-term perspective, would be better because of those things I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But from the mental scope, and he had a good year at Nevada. Like, I think he averaged like 13-5. I think he's going to do good at LSU this year.
Yeah.
I thought he was one of those guys that would do a few years in college and go pro. And I missed on that because I really didn't know that mentally he wasn't nowhere near close there yet. And that's part of like where I am today as a scout compared to previously. I tried to get to know the kid more. You know what I mean? Like, not that it's just like, I want to know if you're going to be a pro or not, but like, I want to get to know the kid and the work ethic. So it helps me with my projections better. I project better now than I did at 24, 25. But I didn't really know those things about Will till later. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I missed because like I didn't do enough for you. So Will Baker, but he's still gonna have a good, he's finished out his college career strong. I just thought it'd be like a 2 and done, to be honest with you. Third, I think I had Jonathan Aku. So Jonathan Aku was a kid that kind of blew up on the scenes. He came from a prep school in Massachusetts or somewhere up north. Came down here, was really good, was a top 100 player. I actually did good for that NBA top 100 camp. He was a 2, I think he class up, he's considered 219, but did really good in that NBA top 100 camp. So I thought, like, I didn't think he pro. I thought really, like, went to Buzz Williams at Texas A&M. Kind of felt that he was going to have a really good college career. Thought he would be someone by second year is going to be a starter for A&M. Thought he was going to have like a really good career. Right now it's at Grambling, but again, it's just like knowing where that kid was at from a mental standpoint, right? And knowing that he had to, maybe he didn't choose the right school, right, for him. Maybe he there's a lot of things with that kid from a mental standpoint. He wasn't ready for the SEC in the reality. That's why I'm so big on from the mental standpoint as far as like where we missed is that knowing that kid. And I was like, oh yeah, like it wasn't going to work out. I think he's going to finish college well, but I thought he was going to be an SEC starter. So I missed on that. Right. So those are my 3 guys that I just really missed on.
Well, I think the difficulty, because you guys are naming a whole bunch of players, and I totally agree, like just about the process. But you mentioned Drew Timme, Ani, who is another guy that we could just talk about. He shined in college. He shined for Gonzaga. Time to become a pro. He goes undrafted. He, gets a summer league opportunity with Milwaukee. I think he signed like an Exhibit 10 or a 2-way deal. But it's like that just goes to show you sometimes it just doesn't translate. So I think you guys have just a really difficult job as scouts and evaluators because you're watching your eyes, you're believing what your eyes tell you. And in that moment, you could be right. But then as a person is going to go to the next level, like you see with Drew Timme, who very well, can find his way with Milwaukee, maybe stick in the league and have a formidable career. So I'm not downplaying it, but I'm just going to show you a high level college player, which you have to consider him high level for what he was able to do.
Wow.
It is not a surefire pro. Right now, he is going to get an opportunity and he's scratching the surface and trying to get in. So, I think you guys just have a really difficult job evaluating and breaking down guys. And I think that there's just always going to be, times where you miss, whether it's because you don't have the, right information, or maybe what you're seeing from this guy in this moment isn't what you're going to see at the next level, and so on and so on. So
I think you miss every year. Like I think scouts miss every year. Scouts don't want to admit that because, like, to college coaches, and when you have a scouting service or whatever, or for the public, you don't want to admit that you miss. We all miss every year. Like you miss to a certain degree every year. And I wish, like, just because I missed on the kid doesn't make me a bad evaluator. And I think and Ronnie, you can attest this, like, I think that's where people are so prideful on is like, I didn't miss on this kid. But I'm like, yes, you did. Like, we didn't think this. And it's okay. Like,
it's something that you don't want to miss where it's just become like the reason why people remember you. I think that's what that's what happens. There's a famous one. that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but Mel Kiper Jr. became famous in the NFL draft. Like, and he's been on the NFL draft for now, what, 30, 35 years, 40 years, is because of the guy from the Indianapolis Colts goes, we're going to draft Marshall Faulk. And they're like, well, you drafted Marshall Faulk. That's why the Colts suck. You need to take this quarterback. And he's like, who the hell's Mel Kiper Jr.? You know, and it became a famous punchline. So to your point, you just people miss all the time. Like, but you don't want to miss on like Scalabassier versus Benson.
Right.
Because you're going to remember that.
Right. Like, we evaluate 1,000 kids. If I'm wrong on 5, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay. But I agree with
learn from it, and like you said, become better and better, and learn. That's where the stubbornness comes in. You know what I mean? Because I like to when it comes to that, like, you know, you miss it or you get it right, but you want to like fix it, and then some people they keep missing on the same thing over and over because they're a little stubborn or like they don't want to admit it, and that's part of it. Boy, we could talk about this for a long time. We've been going for about an hour, so we appreciate everybody tuning in. I think we're going to jump on the In the Paint overtime in Unreal, where we rank a class that we like. You know, talk a little bit about it, a little bit more about that, go back and forth, because this is a great topic. There's a lot of points. Hope you got them. You know, we kind of did our scouting report, you know, segment in our hot takes, and a final exam is on these players. And to Chelsea's point, I don't think we failed it. Like, I don't think you sit there and say, oh, Brandon Knight's like a bad player. He averaged like 19 points in the NBA for one season. But like, but when you're looking at, like you said, the expectations is so high. To put your point at Anthony Bennett, you know, I'm with you. If he'd have been the 8th pick or the 10th pick or the 14th pick, his whole demeanor would be different. People would view him in a different light. So, you know, Ani, give us your final thought, and Chelsea, give us your final thought, and we'll wrap up here just about like evaluation misses and what we talked about.
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, it's all about evolving and growing, right? Like, it's learning from our misses, it's learning from our rights, you know, for us being right. I think that's a big thing, and I just always encourage like people, parents, when they always ask for my advice, you know, keep that tight circle, become the player. You know, at the end of the day, you got to become the player. You can only trick the game for so long, right? Like, you can have people that say he's this and that and whatever. And at the end of the day, like, it's all going to show if he is that or not, right? And that's my big thing, is just like, you know, you can only trick it for so long. If it's all about trying to trick it, you know, the reality comes out. So I just think from an evaluator standpoint, it's always learning every year. And I think from a parent to a player, even if he's a pro or not a pro or Division III or whatever, it's all about just keeping it consistent and making him or her the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Ani, I think that's great advice. I'm gonna take a retired player standpoint, as someone who's just been evaluated and, you know, been around you guys and watched you guys do your thing. It's a super difficult job. And I would just say, as a player, to never get too high, never get too low. And you put in the work and you live with the results. And I'm a firm believer of that, because I think that there's just so many factors, and we talked about a lot of them today, that just come into play that maybe you can or cannot control.
Right.
So, you know, when you get to those moments, all you can do is rely on the work that you did. And if you did the work, hopefully good things become of it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But you will be way more confident living with the results if you know you did what you were supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's great points. And as we close out, I'll just add one is, you know, get some advice from somebody who won't benefit you if you make it, and who won't be hurt if you don't. Because sometimes, you know, those things can cloud people's judgments. But overall, you know, have fun with the game. Hopefully people have fun when they listen to this pod. You know, you even parents, you know, like I said, when we go to the gym sometimes, Ani, we see people and they're just so stressed out. They're, you know, like the money involved. It just wasn't like that 20 years ago as much. You know, I know everything in life is becoming more expensive. Obviously, inflation, gas, housing, everything we can talk about. But, you know, we try to make the game enjoyable. On that note, we're out of here on episode 167. We'll jump on the In the Paint overtime and have a little bit of fun. talk about re-ranking some classes. Most people like to do the drafts, but we rank a class. But for now, we're out of here. For Chelsea, Ani, and Ronnie, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye,
Bye, guys.